One of the most common questions I get asked as an herbalist is, are there any herbs that I shouldn't take together? And the simplest answer for that is 99% of the time, no, not really. Most herbs work synergistically together. However, if you'd like a more detailed explanation, check this out. Here's a few things to consider if you're starting to take herbs. Now, for most people, they will take herb blends or take herb supplements. If you were taking supplements or if you were drinking teas that have multiple herbs in them, read your label carefully and make sure that you're not getting the same herb in multiple tinctures, capsules, or teas. The reason why is you have what will be called like an herbal overload. So if you have 4 separate supplements that have the same herb in there, you run the risk of having 4 times as much of that herb as you really need. In some very rare cases, there are a couple of herbs that run the risk of potentially absorbing the benefits of other herbs. So these would be herbs with mucilage, such as slippery elm or marshmallow root. This is kind of a slimy substance that helps with lungs and congestion, but can impact the absorption of specific compounds in the digestive tract. This is very rare, and in fact, in most cases, slippery elm and marshmallow work well together and synergistically in other types of blends, but just be aware that it could potentially be a thing. In other rare occurrences, you have the risk of opposing effects. So, in traditional Chinese medicine, you have what's called a warming herb. So, that would be something like cayenne, which can help warm the body. And then you have cooling herbs, which is like peppermint. You wouldn't want to necessarily take those two herbs together because they could counterbalance themselves out and not have any effect unless that specific blend it has that in it. So it's somewhat nuanced, but just something to consider. The other thing is, if you were taking an adaptogen that gives you lots of energy, and then you try to take a sedative to go to sleep, they can counterindicate, and then you don't really get the rest, and you don't really get the energy. So you got to be paying attention to the types of herbs that you're using more than the actual herb itself. And the last thing to consider would be the pharmacological impact. If you are on some sort of pharmaceutical medication, in some cases there are some herbs that do not work well with pharmaceutical drugs. For instance, if you're on some type of blood thinner, like warfarin, then you don't want to be taking a lot of cayenne or white willow because these herbs thin your blood and then you run the risk of having too thin a blood. The other type of situation where that could occur would be like with psych meds. If you were on some type of psych meds for relaxation or anxiety or whatever, then you wouldn't want to take something like St. John's wort. St. John's wort is well known. This has been done in many, many studies. St. John's wort does not work well with psych meds because St. John's wort makes your brain work better, but the psych meds also chemically impact your brain, and in most cases, it will exacerbate your symptoms. So hopefully this particular video helped you out. If it did, please let me know. And if you'd like me to kind of dig in a little bit deeper with stuff like this, I can, and do a few more videos like this to give you some more examples of herbs you maybe wouldn't want to use together. But for the most part, it's perfectly fine.